You are standing in a Roman fullery just after dawn, and the smell hits you first sharp, mineral, clean. A worker tips a pale powder into a stone basin. He swirls a stained tunic through the water. Minutes later, the cloth comes out brighter than anything in your own laundry room. That powder was a borax family mineral salt, and the Romans had at least 15 uses for it. Here is my claim. Almost everything sitting in your cleaning cabinet, the sprays, the softeners, the whiteners, the deodorizers, is an expensive repackaging of one cheap mineral the Romans mastered 2,000 years ago. I found the trail in Pliny the Elder's own words, written before he died in the eruption of 79 AD. And there is one final use, buried in a single line of an old text, that I tested with my own hands last month, and it stopped me cold. I will give it to you before the end. But first, I have to answer the question that started this whole investigation. If this stuff worked so well and cost so little, why did it quietly vanish from ordinary homes? Let me take you back. I have spent most of my life reading things other people skip: excavation footnotes, inventory lists, the boring parts of ancient books where nobody expects to find treasure. And a few years ago, I opened a translation of Pliny's Natural History, Book 31, the section on salts and mineral fluids, and I found him describing a white mineral the Romans gathered, dried, and traded across the whole empire. He called members of this mineral family by names like nitrum and aphronitrum. Scholars argue about the exact chemistry because the ancient words covered a whole cuisine group of alkaline salts, natron, soda ash, and the borate salts we now sell as borax. But here is what matters. The Romans did not care about the chemical name. They cared about what it did. And what it did was almost everything. I remember sitting there with my coffee going cold, reading Pliny list use after use after use, and thinking, nobody told me this. I had a cupboard full of 12 different products upstairs, and this man was describing one powder that replaced all of them. So I started counting, and I stopped at 15. Let me show you the first one, because it is the one the Romans built an entire industry around. Picture that fullery again. In Roman towns, the fullers, the full ones, ran the laundries and the cloth finishing shops. Archaeologists have dug up more than a dozen of them in Pompeii alone, frozen in place by the ash of 79 AD. You can still see the stone tubs, the treading basins, the channels for the water. This was not a small trade. This was the dry cleaning industry of the ancient world, and it ran on mineral salts. Here is what the fuller knew that your detergent label will never tell you. Alkaline mineral salt does two things at once. It softens hard water, and it lifts grease. Grease is the enemy of every cleaning job you have ever done. Oil from skin, oil from cooking, oil from the natural lanolin in wool. Ordinary water just slides off it. But alkaline salt breaks the surface tension, grabs the oil, and pulls it loose from the fiber so the water can carry it away. The Roman fuller filled his tub, added the salt, added the cloth, and trod it with his feet, the way you might picture someone crushing grapes. Then he rinsed. The result was cloth that came out cleaner, brighter, and softer than plain washing could ever manage. Now here is where you come in. You can do this today. A tablespoon of borax added to your normal wash boosts the detergent you already paid for, so you use less of it, and it softens hard water so the soap actually works instead of fighting the minerals in your pipes. People with well water and hard water tell me their whites came back to life the first time they tried it. This is not folklore. This is the same chemistry the fuller trod into his tub 20 centuries ago. So the first mystery is simple. This worked. It plainly worked. The Romans built shops around it, and it survived in grandmother's laundry rooms right up into living memory. Therefore, the real question is not whether it works. The real question is why you stopped hearing about it. And that answer is where this story turns dark. Let me tell you what happened to the one cheap powder that could do a dozen jobs. For most of human history, a household kept a handful of basic materials and combined them as needed: vinegar, salt, fat for soap, ashes for lye, and an alkaline mineral powder, the borax and natron family, that handled the hardest jobs. One box, many uses. You learned the ratios from your mother and you passed them to your children. Then something shifted. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, chemical companies discovered a simple truth about money. You cannot get rich selling a customer one product that does 15 things. You get rich selling 15 products that each do one thing. So the single box on the shelf became a wall of bottles. A special spray for glass, a special cream for tubs, a special liquid for floors, a special powder for laundry, a special tablet for the toilet, each one in bright packaging, each one with a scent, each one with a price. And here is the quiet trick. Read the backs of those bottles. Over and over, you will find the same handful of cheap active ingredients dressed up in different colors and different words. You are not buying 15 discoveries. You are buying one idea, split 15 ways, and marked up every single time. The Romans would have laughed. They knew the powder, they knew it did the work, and somewhere between their world and yours, someone decided you were better off not knowing, because the mineral salt did jobs that had nothing to do with laundry, and the next one saved Roman lives. Come back with me to a Roman kitchen. It is late summer, and a household has just slaughtered a pig, or brought in a haul of fish, or pressed a season's worth of olives. There is no refrigerator. There is no freezer. If that food spoils, people go hungry in winter, or worse, they eat something that poisons them. The Roman answer was preservation, and mineral salts were at the heart of it. Pliny and the farming writers, men like Columella, who wrote his great agricultural handbook in the 1st century A.D., describe using salts and alkaline preparations to cure, to preserve, and to keep food from rotting. Egg preservation, meat curing, vegetable keeping. The alkaline salt changed the environment on the surface of the food so the bacteria that cause rot could not take hold. Now, I want to be careful and honest with you here, because that honesty is the only thing worth anything in this work. Borax itself is not something I want you eating, and modern food safety rules restrict it as a food additive for good reason in large amounts. So I am not telling you to sprinkle it on your dinner. What I am telling you is the principle the Romans understood centuries before germ theory. They grasped that a mineral alkaline environment stops decay. That single insight is the ancestor of half the food preservation on Earth, from cured hams to pickled vegetables to the way a museum keeps ancient cloth from crumbling. And that same anti-decay power is exactly why the mineral shines at a job in your home right now, a job the bottle sellers charge you a fortune for. It kills odor at the source. Here is the reconstruction. A Roman household did not have air fresheners. What they had were mineral salts that absorbed moisture and neutralized the smells that come from damp and rot. Set that knowledge down in your own house and watch what it does. A shallow dish of borax in the back of a musty closet pulls the damp and kills the stale smell. A spoonful shaken into the bottom of a garbage can stops the sour odor before it starts, because it goes after the bacteria making the stink instead of just covering it with perfume. Sprinkle it on a mattress that has taken on a smell over the years. Let it sit for an hour and vacuum it up. The odor lifts because you removed its cause, not because you masked it. That is the Roman logic. Do not perfume the problem. End it. So now we have laundry, water softening, grease cutting, preservation, and odor. 5 uses, and we have barely started. But the deeper I dug, the more I realized the Romans were not just cleaning with this mineral, they were defending their homes with it. And that is the use the pest control industry would rather you forgot. Let me set the scene. A Roman granary, or the storeroom of a modest house. Grain, flour, dried goods, everything a family needs to survive the year, and everything an army of insects wants to eat. Weevils in the grain, ants in the pantry, vermin in the walls. Lose that store, and you lose the winter. The Romans fought back with mineral powders, and the science behind why it works is genuinely beautiful. Borax and its mineral cousins are lethal to insects, but far less harmful to us at the small scale. An ant walks through the fine powder. It clings to the waxy coating on the insect's body. When the ant cleans itself, it swallows the mineral, and the mineral wrecks its digestive system and dries it out from the inside. The colony carries it home, it spreads, it ends. Now, here is your modern application, and this is one that people write to me about more than almost anything else. If you have ants marching along a windowsill or a baseboard, you mix a little borax with a little sugar and a little warm water into a paste. The sugar draws them in, the mineral does the work, they carry it back to the nest, and the whole line disappears within days. A box that costs a few dollars replaces the exterminator's visit that cost you well over 100. The cockroach remedy is even older in spirit, a fine dusting of the dry powder in the dark cracks where they travel, under the sink, behind the stove, and they carry their own end back into the walls. I tested the ant paste myself on a stubborn trail that came up through a crack in my back step every single summer. 2 days, gone, and they did not come back that season. I stood there almost annoyed because I had paid a company for years to do what a spoonful of mineral salt did for pocket change. So that is the pattern coming clear now. Cleaning, preserving, defending, one mineral, quietly doing the work of an entire aisle of specialized products. And the losers, every time this knowledge faded, were ordinary families paying more and knowing less. But I promised you this applies to your ordinary life this week, not to a museum. So let me speak now directly to you, the one who is thinking that all of this sounds interesting but complicated, the one who assumes ancient methods need special tools or rare ingredients you cannot find. This next part is built just for you, because I want you to be able to walk into your kitchen tonight and prove this to yourself with almost nothing. Here is the truth that took me years to fully accept. The Romans were not working with anything exotic. They were working with a common mineral, water, and patience. And you already have the water and the patience. The mineral costs a few dollars for a box that will last you a year or more, and you can find it on the bottom shelf of almost any store in the laundry section, usually cheaper than the fancy products stacked at eye level right above it. That is the crime at the center of this story. And if you want to go even deeper into the ancient systems behind all of this, the full reconstruction, the sourcing, the ratios, the 15 uses laid out side by side, I have put it all into a book. It is called Roman Roots, and it goes places this channel simply does not have the time to go. Roman depth and Roman blueprint continue the work, each one building on the last, moving from the household into the wider Roman world of craft, food, and building. Everything is linked in the description below, and if this investigation has already changed the way you see that bottom shelf, Those books will change the way you see your entire home. But losing money on cleaning products is only the surface of this. Let me give you 3 things you can do this week, and every one of them uses just that box, water, and something you already own. The first is your all purpose cleaner. Dissolve 2 teaspoons of borax into a pint of warm water, add a squeeze of dish soap if you like, and pour it into any spray bottle you have saved. That single bottle cleans your counters, your sinks, your stovetop, your bathroom tile, and your greasy kitchen backsplash. One bottle. The Roman principle exactly, one preparation for many jobs. You have just replaced 4 or 5 separate products with a mixture that costs you pennies. The second is your dishwasher and your laundry. A tablespoon of borax in the wash, either the dish machine or the clothes, softens the water so your regular detergent finally does its full job. Instead of wasting half its strength fighting the minerals in hard water, your glasses come out without the cloudy film. Your whites come out brighter, and you find yourself using less of the expensive detergent because the mineral is doing the heavy lifting the Romans always trusted it to do. The third is the one that surprises people most: scorched pots and baked on pans. Instead of scrubbing until your arm aches, you sprinkle borax onto the wet surface, let it sit for 20 or 30 minutes, and the alkaline mineral loosens the burnt grease so it wipes away. This is the exact same grease-lifting chemistry the fuller used on a filthy tunic, just aimed at your dinner pan. None of that requires a single special tool. A saved spray bottle, a spoon, and a box of mineral powder. That is the entire kit. And with it, you have reconstructed in your own home the practical genius that an empire ran on. Now, I told you this mineral had at least 15 uses, and I have been counting as we go. Cleaning cloth, softening water, cutting grease, preserving against decay, killing odor, ants, roaches, all-purpose cleaning, dishes, laundry, scorched pans. But there were uses that reached beyond the household entirely, into the workshop and even into the body. And this is where the story stops being about tidiness and starts being about health and craft. Let me take you into a Roman metalworker's shop. The heat is tremendous. A craftsman is joining 2 pieces of gold, and he needs the solder to flow clean and bond true. Sprinkled onto the join is a mineral flux, and here is a genuinely stunning fact. The borate mineral has been used as a soldering and metalworking flux for so long that its very use for this purpose stretches back into the ancient and medieval trade in these salts. The mineral cleans the metal surface of the oxide film that stops solder from bonding, and it lets the metal flow and join. Jewelers still use borax flux today, right now, in this exact way. The technology never disappeared from that trade. It only disappeared from your awareness. Think about that for a moment. The same white powder that brightened a tunic also joined gold. That is not a coincidence. It is the sign of a civilization that understood a material deeply and squeezed every use out of it instead of buying 15 narrow products the way we were trained to. And the Romans, who put mineral salts on their skin and in their bathhouses, understood something about the body too. The alkaline salts were used in bathing, in cleaning wounds, in the great public baths that were the beating heart of Roman social life. The mildly alkaline mineral wash cut the oil and grime from skin the same way it cut grease from cloth. Now, I am going to be straight with you again, because I will never send you somewhere dangerous. Borax on skin needs care and dilution, and it is not something to overdo. But the principle the Romans used is alive in your bathroom this minute. A weak borax solution is a time-tested way to clean and deodorize, and a paste of it lifts stubborn grime from your hands after a filthy job in the garden or the garage. the kind of ground in dirt that ordinary soap just slides over. So now the count climbs: metal flux, skin and bathing cleaner, hand grime cutter. We are past 13, past 14, and every one of them traces back to that same box. But I have held the best for last, the way the Romans held their finest wine, because there is one use, one specific application that I found in the record almost by accident, and when I tested it, I actually said out loud, "In an empty kitchen, you have got to be kidding me." Before I give it to you, I have to answer the question this whole investigation has been circling. Why did all of this disappear? Who lost when it did? And who won? Here is what I have come to believe after years in these texts and these dig reports. The knowledge did not die because it stopped working. It worked perfectly. It died because it was too cheap to defend. Nobody owns a 2,000-year-old mineral. Nobody can patent what Pliny wrote down before 79 AD. There is no profit in reminding you that one box does the work of 15 bottles. So the single powder was pushed to the bottom shelf, and the specialized products, each with a marketing budget, each with a patent, each with a higher price, took the eye level space and the television time and the space inside your head, and it worked on all of us. I did not learn any of this from my parents, and I should have. It fell out of the chain of knowledge in a single generation, right when the modern cleaning industry was born. The people who lost were families like yours and mine, paying more, storing more, learning less, and quietly becoming dependent on a system that profits from our forgetting. The people who won were the ones selling you the 15th bottle. That is the crime at the center of this story. Not that borax is a miracle. It is not. It is a humble mineral with limits. I have been honest with you about the whole way through. The crime is that a simple, cheap, versatile thing was deliberately buried under expensive complication, and you were never told you had a choice. So let me give you back the last piece, the one I tested, the one that stopped me cold. I found it while chasing the Roman obsession with preservation and cloth, cross-referencing how the fullers and the storekeepers protected valuable textiles and delicate materials over long winters. The thread led me to the way mineral salts were used to protect fibers and surfaces from the slow enemies that destroy them over time: mildew and mold, the damp black rot that ruins fabric, leather, grout, and wood in any home that has ever had a wet season. Here is the secret, and it is almost insultingly simple. Borax is one of the most effective mold and mildew fighters you will ever use, and unlike bleach, it does not just wipe the mold away on the surface for it to grow back in a week. It leaves behind a mineral residue that keeps the mold from returning because the surface stays inhospitable to it. The Romans understood that you do not just clean decay away, you leave the environment hostile to its return. That was the same logic behind their preservation, their odor control, their pest defense, all of it. The single deep idea that runs through every one of the 15 uses. So, here is exactly what I did, and what you can do this weekend. I mixed 1 cup of borax into 2 cups of warm water until it dissolved. I found the black mildew that comes back every single year in the damp corner of my bathroom, the grout line no spray ever fixed for long. I painted the solution straight on, undiluted by rinsing, and I let it dry there. I did not wash it off. That was the whole trick, the part I had been getting wrong my entire life. You leave the mineral behind. The mold lifted, and then the thing that stopped me cold. It did not come back. Not the next month. Not the next season. The corner that had defeated every product in that aisle above the bottom shelf stayed clean, because the surface was no longer a place mold could live. 2,000 years ago, a Roman storekeeper protected his winter cloth with the same principle, and it had been sitting in the record the entire time, waiting for someone to bother reading book 31. You can do it on grout, on the rubber seal of your washing machine, on damp basement walls, on window frames that weep in winter, on the wood in a musty shed. 1 cup of borax, 2 cups of warm water, paint it on, let it dry, walk away. The Roman defense against decay, reconstructed in your own home, for the price of a spoonful of mineral out of a box that costs less than a single fancy bottle of the stuff that never actually worked. That is the 15th use, and it is the one they were most eager for you to forget, because mold and mildew are a permanent, repeating, profitable problem, and a cheap mineral that ends it permanently is very bad for the business of selling you the same spray forever. Let me tell you what I actually recovered in all those hours with Pliny and the dig reports, because it was never really about a powder. What I recovered was the feeling of not being fooled, the quiet dignity of knowing how my own home works, of not needing 15 bottles and a specialist for every small task, of holding knowledge that an empire trusted and a marketing department stole. That is what had been taken from me and from you, and that is what I am handing back. If you are the kind of person who has always suspected that the simplest, most honest solution was quietly shoved aside so someone could sell you the complicated, expensive one, then you already understand what this whole investigation was really about. You are not old-fashioned for wanting things that are cheap, durable, and true. You are awake, and there are more of us than they would like. Now I want to hear from you, and I read these. Of the 15 uses I laid out, tell me which one you are going to try first. Is it the ant paste, the sugar and borax the whole colony carries home? Is it the scorched pan trick? Or is it the mildew corner that never stays clean, the one you paint and walk away from? Pick one and leave it in a comment below. And if you have an old family use for borax that your mother or grandmother taught you, write that down too, because that is exactly the kind of lost knowledge this channel exists to rescue before it disappears for good. And if any part of this changed the way you see that bottom shelf at the store, then come with me, because this is what we do here. We dig the practical genius of the ancient world back out of the ground, one forgotten method at a time, and we hand it back to the people it was taken from. Subscribe and stand with the ones recovering what was quietly buried, because the next one I am chasing may be bigger than this. I have been reading about a Roman method for keeping food fresh for months without any cold at all. A technique the excavators found sealed in the storerooms of a Roman villa, and if it holds up to my own testing the way this one did, it is going to change the way you think about your kitchen entirely. I found the first thread in Columella's own farming handbook, and I cannot wait to show you where it leads. Until then, go find that box on the bottom shelf, mix one small thing, and feel, maybe for the first time, what it is to know exactly how your own home works. The Romans knew, now you do too. Before you go, here's what comes next. This video was the overview, but inside the Roman way circle, I walk you through every borax use measured by hand, including that final one that stopped me cold. And in there you can ask me your own question, and a real person, me, answers you myself. You'd belong with thousands of old ways folks just like you. Point your phone's camera at the code on screen. Cancel anytime with one click.